Welcome to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. Legal issues simplified through real client stories and real-world experiences. Creating simplicity in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to another episode of Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd.
As a business and healthcare law firm, we meet a lot of interesting people and learn their amazing stories. Our clients commonly come to us with the latest word on the street that they heard from a friend. Brad, this season we will talk about stories with a common legal urban legend and seek to either prove or disprove the legend. This season's theme is fake or real.
That's awesome. Well, Michael, I'm kind of looking across from you today, and you look really well rested. The summer seems to be, I know we're almost done with it because we're in August now, but it seems to be suiting you well.
Well, thank you for noticing, Brad. I'm recently back from a quick family vacation, and I'm actually feeling pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I was last weekend driving home from Austin, Texas.
Nice.
And I noticed a pretty funny bumper sticker as we were passing through a particularly country portion of our state.
Michael, are you saying that there might have been some rednecks around?
Well, that word does definitely paint a vivid and maybe accurate picture of the area of Texas that we were in. But
Sure.
Anyway, to carry on the visual that you've created with redneck.
Yes, my fault.
The bumper sticker was on the back of an old beat up pickup truck.
Okay.
And when I say bumper sticker, that's really not doing it justice. It was massive. It took up the entire rear windshield.
Okay.
The first thing that caught my attention, other than the sheer size of it, was a massive silhouette of a cowboy riding a bull.
Okay.
And which actually isn't that unusual.
No, sure.
For that area of our state. But underneath it in large letters, it said, "No texting and bull riding."
Ah, okay. Well, that does remind me of some other ones when I'm driving either west Texas and sometimes even East Texas that I've seen, and I can't remember which side of the great state of Texas I was on when I saw it, but one was "Rub some dirt on it."
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a good classic. And of course, the one that made me laugh and my wife gave me stink eye. "I love big bucks and I cannot lie."
Oh, well, that is like a double hit there. It's both a dad joke and brings out your 13-year-old humor.
Yes, it did.
All right. Well, I saw one that cracked me up because if you've ever had a friend that's vegan or CrossFit, you'll get this one.
Yeah.
If the bumper sticker said, "If you meet someone who is vegan and into CrossFit, which one do they talk about first?" How about you? Do you have any favorite bumper stickers besides the big bucks one?
I don't know if I have a favorite bumper sticker, but I was driving behind a minivan once, and on the bumper sticker, it made me laugh. It said, "I used to be cool."
Oh, I bet you resonated with that one.
I'm still cool.
Well, all the ones I can think of are really tap into my 13-year-old boy humor. And even though Riley's not here, I don't want to disappoint her. We do have our podcast sensei, Rob, here,
Yes.
and he probably would get into our 13-year-old boy humor talk, but
Yeah.
I'll pass for now.
Well, I won't.
Okay.
Going back to my 13-year-old humor, I actually remember the first time I saw this bumper sticker, and I'm not sure if I can actually say the word, so I'll try to spell it. It said, "Something happens" with an SH, some type of maybe an I with followed by maybe a T, maybe. Mm-hmm. And I remember driving with my dad laughing, and it's such a classic because I still thought it was perfect.
Yeah. Well, that all makes sense, and I probably would have laughed too.
Yes.
I saw another one, of course, also in a rural part of Texas, on the back of an old pickup truck that said, "My son beat up your honor student."
Yeah, speaking of kids ones, I did see one where it said, "I childproofed my car, but they still got in."
Okay, well, let's get a little more personal, Brad.
Okay.
Do you have any bumper stickers on your car?
None. No, none right now.
Have you ever had bumper stickers on your car?
I have, and so I guess depending on the season of my life, I've had Saints bumper stickers. I've had Carry the Load bumper stickers, which is, for those who don't know, a nonprofit that we do a lot of work with that helps bring back the true meaning of Memorial Day. And then at different points in different cars, I've had my kids' schools' logos on it. Well, how about yourself?
I'm not a bumper sticker guy. And I actually have gotten more anti-bumper sticker over the years. It just is.
Yes, we're talking about it now.
Well, anti-bumper sticker on my car.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate the bumper sticker.
Got it.
Just not on my car. It's too messy. And I think what really started getting me there is that I've got a huge amount of kids, as you know. I have 5 kids. And so you can't keep up with all the different things that you could advertise.
Yes.
And no, I did not carry the stick figure family on the back of my car with the, 5 kids and all my at 1.7 pets.
Yes. Well, that'd probably be like that bull riding car you saw that it would just take up the entire back windshield.
Exactly.
With your kids and pets.
Exactly. Well, it did help me, the fact that I'm anti-bumper sticker on my car, because my daughter, Caroline, gave me an Arkansas Razorback sticker for Christmas one year, and it's still sitting in my closet.
Oh, okay. At least you can throw it away.
And so I feel okay about it because she understands that I'm not a bumper sticker guy. So it's not the fact that I don't want to put her bumper sticker on. But to be fair, it is an Arkansas Razorback sticker. And so I like having the reason that not to put it on there, because a good UT Longhorn would never have a Arkansas Razorback sticker on the back of his car.
That makes sense. Now I know what to get you for Christmas, though. It sounds like I need to get a whole box of Texas A&M bumper stickers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would put them to good use. Well, here's a cousin to the bumper sticker, the personalized license plate. Just tell me you don't have a personalized license plate, Brad.
Never have, but I guess it's cousin. I have had personalized holders of the license plates, and then shocking news. One said season ticket holder for the Saints, and the other one said 2009 Super Bowl champs with the Saints. So those are I guess it's a cousin to it.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, for the most part, I don't like the attention that it calls to people, but I did laugh really hard. I saw a lady driving a Porsche convertible that had personalized plates that said "was his."
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no bueno. Okay, well, what does I guess bumper sticker / personal license plates have to do with fake or real today?
Absolutely nothing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we are going to be talking about the corporate practice of medicine, or CPOM. And I feel like there's a good bumper sticker or license plate that could be created for CPOM.
Yeah, and as many of you know, Michael does have CPOM tattooed on his bicep, so that's probably why he thinks it's a good bumper sticker. Mm-hmm. But for those who don't know, the corporate practice of medicine is a state doctrine. It basically limits corporations from providing medical services or employing physicians, and it is in every single state. We've talked about this in other shows. It's a little bit different, but that's kind of a high-level understanding of what CPOM is.
Yeah, and so our question that we will dispel today, Brad, is about CPOM, and the question is this: fake or real, CPOM may affect the business structure of my medical spa.
I think I know the answer, but let's get started with today's story.
Okay. The main character in today's story is a prominent female facial plastic surgeon named Dr. Shirley Partridge.
Okay, I'm putting on my thinking cap here, and I think you used to complain about my movie references. Now I think you're adopting that you like it, because I'm thinking about a character from the 1970s TV show, the Partridge Family reference, and I like it.
Ding, ding.
And I'm thinking only 2 people in this room. No, maybe a third person. I'm looking at Rob in the engineer seat. I bet you Rob knows it.
Yeah.
Cynthia, who's sitting in for Riley today, I don't think you've ever seen the Partridge Family. She's shaking her head, no audience.
Danny
members.
Bonaducci? I mean,
yeah.
Okay. All right.
We got a thumbs up over there from Rob.
Well, for those that do not know, the Partridge Family was a TV show based on a family band. Shirley Partridge was the widowed mom, and she had a traveling band with her 5 children.
Yeah, and I love that you're finally starting to understand the relevance of old movies and old TV shows. And the fact that you went back to the 70s, you make fun of me using the 80s. But let's get back into our story. Does Dr. Partridge have a band with her family?
No, Brad, we don't do a lot of band talk on our podcast.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that
Dr.
makes sense.
Partridge is in our story is widowed.
Okay.
Actually,
Sorry to hear that.
and she has 3 children of her own that work at her practice.
Okay.
Lori is a physician assistant at the practice.
Okay.
Suzanne is a registered nurse.
Okay.
And Keith is the CEO on the business side. He's not a practitioner.
All right. Well, tell me there's someone to fill the shoes of Ruben, who was the Partridge Family Band manager.
Yeah, you got to have a band manager.
Yeah.
So you'll be happy, Brad. Ruben, in our story today, actually, when Dr. Partridge first was widowed and needed help at the practice, had hired Ruben to help run the business, and had actually been there since Dr. Partridge first purchased the practice 25 years ago. And he's like family to them.
Yeah, and the more I'm sitting here, Michael, wondering, are you secretly hiding the fact that we know you don't like bumper stickers, but maybe you're a Partridge Family groupie and you're about to break into your first ever favorite Partridge Family song here in the podcast?
We know that someone on our team here is guilty of breaking into song. And if someone were to go back and listen, they would discover that there is someone who has done that multiple times, and it's not me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But so please don't.
All right. Well, back to the story then.
Okay. So Ruben created the medical spa at the practice 20 years ago. And side note, they didn't call them medical spas 20 years ago.
No, they didn't.
And has actually today, the medical spa side of this practice is making as much money as the surgical side.
Okay. So let's, when did or why did Dr. Partridge actually call you then?
So after all this time building a successful business, Dr. Partridge was ready to scale.
Okay. Well, Michael, you know how much I love context, fake news. I know you love context. Please let the audience know, what does scale mean or scaling?
Okay. Well, I like context so much. I got to give you context to give you the context about what scaling is.
Okay.
So we've talked on other episodes about the seasons of a business. Every practice, every business is in one of 4 seasons. Our terms, we call it the building season.
Yep.
That's the beginning. You're putting the infrastructure in place. And then you're in the operating season. That's the day-to-day grind of running your business and dealing with crises as they pop up.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you may decide to go into the scaling season. And the scaling season is a time when there is a focus on accelerating the growth of the business.
Sure.
And that may be creating a new revenue stream, opening new locations, or adding to your existing revenue streams in some strategic way that is a focused effort to accelerate growth. And then as we talked about all last season, the 4th season of a business is the selling season, and it is directly impacted by all these other 3 seasons.
Yeah, the buying and selling season is an important aspect for a lot of individuals. So what was Dr. Partridge's vision for why she wanted to scale?
Great question. So she was mostly thinking about creating flexibility and security for her eventual exit. So she had family. She had 3 kids in her practice. She had Ruben, which was relevant. Mm-hmm. And, she wasn't getting any younger. She was the breadwinner for the practice. She was the surgeon with the skills. And so she really wanted to specifically grow the medical spa side and had a vision to open multiple new locations.
Okay. And so why did she share, I guess, more importantly, what she wanted to do with this?
Yeah, I mean, she wanted to reward Ruben for his loyalty, and she wanted to create a place for Lori, Suzanne, and Keith beyond her retirement. And she had also kind of coincidentally identified a young surgeon that she was ready to hire to help and eventually take over on the surgical side.
Got it. So she basically, what I heard was her office manager, the PA, the RN, and the CEO, all who are not physicians or individuals that she was trying to figure out ways to be a part of it. And then more importantly, which I wanted to jump back into, is this happens a lot, especially with our surgeons. They want to find ways to tap into the non-surgical revenue because it's more flexible, it's more repeatable, and especially for those who've heard us talk about this in the med spa world, or we talked about it, especially during the Hitchhiker's Guide to M&A, it's an ability for them to operate something that is not dependent on the surgeon, in that case, the physician, from actually physically having to be in the med spa every day. So it can be a win for them.
No, absolutely. And she kind of presented this to me as a footnote, but Dr. Partridge was also curious about private equity. And so it was appealing to her to have a strategy, this scaling strategy that would also leave open the possibility of a private equity exit if she decided to go that way. But if she did, she wanted to create it in a way that it would reward the family as well. And by family, we mean Ruben and the kids.
Yeah. And I would say this, a lot of times when we're talking with clients, and we will take the healthcare regulatory aspect of this for a second, is especially these key employees, they want to find a way to reward them when they exit, because they, although might not be an owner of the entity at the time, they want them to share in that. So they might be done through certain types of bonus pools or stock options, or actually giving them direct equity. But as everyone has heard us in other episodes, that can get complicated because they're in the healthcare world. For sure.
So Dr. Partridge, actually, what she had communicated was that she wanted Ruben to have a 30% stake in all the new medical spas that were open.
Okay.
And she also wanted Lori and Suzanne and Keith to each have 15% in these new locations. So you can see that she was going to be a minority owner in this scaled vision of all these new locations.
Yeah, and it's starting to get a little complicated here. It seems like there's some math involved. You still have this original practice, right?
Right, yeah. So that's the Partridge Family Facial Plastics Institute.
Okay. Was it out of a bus by chance?
Maybe.
Okay. So I'm assuming, you didn't say it, but the original practice is still 100% owned by Dr. Partridge.
Yeah, I probably should have said that earlier. Yes, she owns 100%.
And for context, for our audience and myself, what state are they currently living in?
Well, like all good entertainers, Brad, they're in California.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And now they want a different ownership for the expanded practice, is what I heard.
Yes. So, and as would have happened with you, I'm sure, when she was explaining the vision, my legal brain was going wild, and she needed to have a whiteboard meeting.
Yeah, and audience members, y'all probably heard us talk about this before, but we love whiteboard meetings because it's an opportunity to really hear the vision of our client or a client, and then able to sketch out literally with pens and on a whiteboard of, here's your current structure, here's how the flow of funds would work, here is how you could see it, and they can visualize the next entities and ownership and flow of patients. So it's a great opportunity before you actually develop the actual documentation of mapping out the vision of this new corporate structure.
Yeah, and so Dr. Partridge had this critical moment in time where she had business reasons to revisit the corporate structure with the scaling of the business. But what she didn't realize, and I was, of course, identifying, is that there's also compliance reasons to consider when she with her scaling vision to look at the corporate structure.
Yeah, and this brings us, I think, back to the myth that's bursting out of this particular story with the Partridge family. Michael, is it fake or real? Corporate practice of medicine may affect the business structure of my med spa.
It's real, Brad.
Yes,
it is real.
Okay, that was the answer I was going to give earlier when I said I think I knew the answer.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you would have passed the test.
Whew.
Dr. Partridge is in the state of California. And she had implemented a strategy where non-physicians, Ruben and can you remember who the other one was?
The bus.
Keith. They were non-physicians and non-practitioners.
Non-practitioners, yeah.
And they were going to be owners. And California is a strong corporate practice of medicine state.
It sure is. Well, Michael, that's a great story. I think what we can do right now is we can go to commercial, and on the other side, we can talk about the legal implications of their story and, more importantly, dive deeper into, from a structuring perspective, how to address it with the corporate practice of medicine.
Many business owners use legal counsel as a last resort rather than as a proactive tool that can further their success. Why? For most, it's the fear of unknown legal costs. ByrdAdatto's Access Plus program makes it possible for you to get the ongoing legal assistance you need for one predictable monthly fee. That gives you unlimited phone and email access to the legal team, so you can receive feedback on legal concerns as they arise. Access Plus, a smarter, simpler way to access legal services. Find out more. Visit ByrdAdatto.com today.
Welcome back to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto. I'm still sitting here with my co-host, Michael Byrd. Now, Michael, this season's theme is fake or real. And, we talked about today with Dr. Shirley Partridge and the whole Partridge Family Facial Plastic Institute, which is not in a bus. Maybe just for those who, kind of want to, after the commercial, just a little quick recap of what happened.
Yeah, so, as a recap, Dr. Partridge approached us and got on a call with me because she had a very successful facial plastics practice for the past 25 years. She had med spas before med spas were a name,
right,
and had this non-surgical side of the practice that had grown to the point where the non-surgical revenues were equal to the surgical revenues.
Wow.
And, I think the biggest reason she called is she has family and Ruben, who has been with her the whole time. And she had this sense of loyalty, of wanting to reward them. And it was really more of a reward for what they were going to do as opposed to for what had been done.
Yeah.
So she was looking at, okay, well, I want to go open multiple new med spas because I'm going to scale the business, and that's going to create security for my family. And so that's where she came from. And she had a vision to have kind of new ownership for the new locations, yet she was going to preserve kind of her ownership stake in the practice. And maybe ultimately, we didn't talk a lot about this, probably sell that side of things to the young surgeon that she was bringing on.
Sure. And I think, the story, as we caught at the very end, this is based out of California. So, audience members, as you know, every single state has a different way of looking at the rules and regulations, especially when it comes to CPOM. But California is a state that does have it. And the way they have, and by the way, for those who don't know, and they're probably the strongest state when it comes to enforcement of CPOM. But for those who don't know, non-physicians actually can co-own a medical entity in the state of California. The terminology they use is allied health professionals, which there's a long list of different types of providers, and that could be anywhere from your PAs all the way down to certain social workers. So the list is pretty robust if you have a particular license, but they're limited, meaning that the physician still has to own the max or minimum 51%, and these other allied health professionals would own up to 49%, which, as in today's story, will definitely impact our PA and RN, Laura and Susan, because they could own up to 49% of the actual med spas as they open them up, but Ruben and Keith could not. So, Michael, let's talk about the current climate of CPOM in California. What's going on there?
Yeah, and you alluded to it a moment ago. So, corporate practice of medicine in California is strong, but one of the things that we've always appreciated about it is it's been really clear.
Yes, it gets very clear.
We know what you can and you can't do according to the way the laws have been builded, and actually the medical board's issued a lot of information over the years. And so it's been easier for us to guide our clients on what the boundaries are and how you set these up. You alluded to the enforcement side of it.
Yeah. And
that is chaos. That's why California in many ways is one of the hardest states to go into from a risk perspective. And, there's just a lot of stuff bubbling under the surface in California. A couple of years ago, there was some legislation that got it didn't get too far, but it got out there that would have effectively kill the MSOs, which we'll talk a little bit more about here. But it would have had a significant impact on the solution to the corporate practice of medicine. And then from an enforcement perspective, not only is California, kind of enforcement really strict about people doing things they shouldn't be doing, they are starting to focus their attention on MSOs, and there just is, an enforcement theme of looking hard at the activities of non-doctors involved in the business of medicine and in the practice of medicine. And so it raises the risk profile. Even though the laws are clear, it's not for the faint of heart. You have to understand kind of what you're getting into. Yeah,
all good points. And the point, I think the most important of that is how aggressive they are about enforcing it. And there is no leeway in that. So when you're sitting there visiting with Dr. Shirley Partridge, you obviously had to help her accomplish her goals. So what did you utilize to make that happen?
Yeah, so we talked about the MSO, which I alluded to a moment ago. That's the Management Services Organization, and this is the most common solution to the corporate practice of medicine. And the idea is that in a corporate practice of medicine state, you have to have a professional entity that's either 100% owned by the doctor or this 5149 with the allied health professionals.
Yep.
And so the way you deal with the Rubens and the Keiths is you create an MSO, and that is called a Management Services Organization. That entity can be owned by anyone, and in this particular case, the idea was, let's create an MSO for all these new locations with this ownership table that I mentioned earlier. 30% to Ruben, 15% each to the kids, and then the rest to Dr. Partridge. And then we would have a medical practice that would still, in this case, be 100% owned by Dr. Partridge, and we would bring that kind of those two entities to life, bring the MSO model to life through a management services agreement. And so the idea here, without getting too much into the weeds on the MSA, is because it really was how do we create a structure that would effectuate what she's wanting to accomplish. And so we ended up having the old practice that was owned by Dr. Partridge, and then she had a new practice that was owned by Dr. Partridge, and then we had this MSO that I just mentioned. And so in this particular case, all the patients that they've had historically at kind of the home location where the surgical practice is and the original med spa is would still business as usual.
Yeah.
They would come in, they'd go. When they opened the new locations, it from a branding perspective would look the same, but they were actually patients were walking into a different medical practice entity, and that particular entity was being managed by this MSO owned by the band and their band manager.
Yes, and for our audience members, we didn't want to dive too deep today in this episode on the inside the MSA. A couple of good quick takeaways for your thoughts. Number one is, a lot of times, especially in strong states, someone says, I just want my MSA, and they get an MSA and they think that makes them compliant because they have an MSO and a professional entity. Those hearing this for the first time, those who have heard me say this a lot, it's a form and substance issue, and especially in strong states like California, where you want to make sure that MSO is showing up and rendering certain services, and then therefore the management fee and all the costs associated, there is a process that goes with it. Those who want to dive deeper into this, obviously we've done other shows in this. We actually have a MSO field guide out there that you can read about the function and why you need an MSO, and especially court practice of medicine states. And we will get back into the MSO world in another episode where we're going to dive a lot deeper into how they can be utilized. But Michael, how about your final thoughts?
Well, I think I should get Dr. Partridge a bumper sticker that says, or for the kids, it says, "My mom conquered CPOM." What do you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'll make sure that's on her Christmas list. Well, audience members, that is all the time we have today. Next Wednesday, we will continue our quest to determine a legal myth when we bring on a returning guest, Dr. Jonathan Kaplan, to help us unpack fake or real, it is legal to compound semaglutide. Thanks again for joining us today. And remember, if you like this episode, please subscribe, make sure to give us a 5-star rating, and share with your friends.
You can also sign up for the ByrdAdatto newsletter by going to our website at ByrdAdatto.com.
ByrdAdatto is providing this podcast as a public service. This podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal advice, nor does it establish an attorney-client relationship. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by ByrdAdatto. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Please consult with an attorney on your legal issues.